maybe even a year later, and read it and go, wow, this is crazy. Who wrote this, right? You don't even remember what you wrote many times. Or you reread it and you're like, this does not make sense. It did at the time, okay? That's kind of the power of the rewrite. You come back to it and say, did this still make sense to me the way I wanted it to, or the way I remember that it did a year ago, a month and a half ago, okay? At some point, when you give yourself enough time and you give yourself opportunities for feedback, then you get the chance to do more revision, okay? You transform ideas here into sentences, sentences into the structure of paragraphs, go through several drafts, and then again, refining for idea, style, and structure. Make sense? Basic, right? But here's the thing too. Think about these stages from also the standpoint of resources available to you on your campus. It's a good time to seek a lot of this additional assistance from your instructor, your professor, the teaching assistants, even writing tutors on your campus. Some of the better writers on your campus are undergraduate writing tutors, okay? I used to work at the Learning Center at UC Riverside. What you don't want to do is walk into to see a writing tutor and say, my paper's due at 3 o'clock, it's 11 o'clock right now, and can you help me do my paper? That is the wrong way to go ahead and use a writing tutor. What you need to do is actually come in there with some work and see that person maybe several times to get at some of the revision pieces, okay? These tutors are not going to help write your paper. They're not going to do it, okay? But they can give you good feedback if you bring in stuff to work with. Have I lost anyone? We're feeling this, right? This is okay. So, if we got the basic structure down, okay? Sometimes your paper's going to look like this, all right? See this? Don't make me get my red pen. Forgot the apostrophe, right? What's wrong with this? Read this. The reason why I want to do this is because. What's wrong with that? This gets a little bit of what you were talking about, okay? A little bit about what we say versus, because I talk like this. The reason why I want to do this is because. What's wrong with that little statement up above? Okay, wanna. What's the other one? Cause. What else? Huh? The? Oh, it should be capital. Okay, what else should be capitalized? The I. Okay. What else? Is there anything else? Huh? A comma where?
Could he have just made it just said, I want this particular thing?
Exactly.
The reason why.
Exactly. Isn't this like the reason why? It's like it's redundant. The reason why? The reason is the why. Right? The reason I want to do this. The reason why I want to do this. And then if you say like the reason why I want to do this is because. The reason why because. Okay? So now this is sort of the structure pieces too. We totally know what this means. I know what this means. I talk like this. Okay? But I don't write it like that. And certainly when you look at some of these things here, when people tear up your paper, again, it's the extra set of eyes that will tell you something else, right? Look at this. If we just ask, circle, please don't shout. Right? Okay. Using quotes like this makes them sound like imaginary people. Are they? Right? All of them, a lot of questions. This one here, all about blah, blah, blah. They're like just marked the whole thing and said, awkward. So again, it's not so much, sometimes it's the skill. Some of this is skill. Some of it is content. Having time to go ahead and revise and work on this is important. Being able to spot the obvious, like the T, the I, the misspellings, but then the redundancies, the why, the reason, the because, okay, spelled incorrectly with a contraction, right? That's where this kind of work is really important, where you give yourself enough time to do this. The smaller packet that you have here, the smaller packet, there is some text that's inside. If you read this, it reads very much, like Jackie said, it reads very much like someone speaking. And you'll read it and you'll totally understand it, but in the end you're like, maybe what I want to do, because I'm in this core writing skills workshop, is rewrite this paragraph to see if you can make it cleaner. If you can turn this from more spoken English into more written English, take the time to do that right now for about 10 minutes. words. Just as an exercise,
No,
because
that makes
we're going to
sense too. So
assume
there's-
everything
there's-
else
that's
that
a
you
really good
looked at
point.
earlier.
You know, the
is
more
stuff
words
you're
you
able
learn
to
in English
accomplish.
as a person who's
Now
learning
we're looking
English
at
as a second
things like
language, yeah,
style.
that can
Now we're
definitely
looking at things
help
like
you out.
grammar. Now we're looking at
But in the same way
voice.
too, you know,
Let's say you
go
end
ahead
up
and do that.
learning
Take about
10,000 new words.
10 minutes.
I'll bet you there's not going to be a single English person in the world that's going to know maybe 9,500 of those words.
Yeah, because the more words you know, you can use it.
Yes.
And if you, like in my case, if I'm given to use some word, I'm going to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
Repeat the same words over and over.
See, and that's a good point. That is a good point. Sometimes you don't want to repeat the same words.
When I read my papers and I say these words here, here, and there,
Uh-huh.
I want to change them, but I don't know what other words mean.
I see. So the person who's writing is actually matters. It actually matters that sometimes saying less is more, and sometimes having a better vocabulary based on your language skill and your proficiency in English is going to matter. I understand that. I understand that. And that's a very good point. So you just need to understand the place that you're in. Does this kind of illustrate what we're trying to get at? Like I said, we kind of went through the steps. What I tried to do was make clear the example that this ties to note-taking, analytical reading, just showing up in class, how this also can be turned into an opportunity for you to prepare for tests, because you're picking some of these things out in your notes, in your lectures, and you're prepared to look for the keywords that you might be tasked with putting together in an essay for a test. Does that make sense? Okay? If you do all these things and you give yourself enough time to get revision and get feedback, you can only improve your writing. Writing, like I said, is a skill. You get better at it the more that you use it. And it's always better to have more people read it, okay? Now, walking out of here, you're not going to be a Nobel laureate in literature, right? But you are going to be following a lot of these same steps, whether you're doing stuff in high school, college, or even if you're trying to prepare a doctoral dissertation. So again, on many fronts, even though this can be sort of a basic workshop, all right, this is still an opportunity for you to take stock in that. I wanted to get back, Ricardo, to the question that you had in the beginning about style and voice and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and look something up real quick. I found a great website that I think might be helpful to all of you. And ask me later. All right, it is nuts and bolts dot wash call D-E-D. Okay, see this website here? This is the website. It's called nutsandbolts.washcall, okay, .edu. It's about the nuts and bolts, obviously, of college writing. You'd be amazed how many things are available on the web right now. This is a really, really good website. And it gets at some of the more advanced things that you're talking about, Ricardo, okay? Whoops. So you get at some of the negative thinking. I've got nothing to say, okay? So the guide to the thinking section. We talked a little bit about thinking and putting together your ideas. You've already decided on a decent idea and argument. Then we talk about style, okay? So what are some of the different things here in terms of style? We talk about prepositional phrases, passive voice, okay? A number of different things. They make reference to the 5-paragraph essay, using words, toward versus towards, right? Then we talk about structure, mechanics. All of these things are fantastic resources that are beyond the scope of this workshop, but I want to let you know that this stuff does exist, and it's out there, okay? Structure. This one's interesting. Your basic blueprint, how to write for scientific research paper, okay? The beginning, the middle, and the end for a review or a lab report. This is a kind of writing. How many of you are hard science majors? Oh, no one. Okay, good times. I had to write labs a lot when I was a biology major, okay? Dealing with weaknesses. Now, this is the stuff about passive voice. I was kind of trying to give a thing here. This sounds wishy-washy. it may at first seem paradoxical to suggest it's like, okay? Maybe a little bit stronger, okay? Admittedly, there's no direct evidence. Okay, you just shot yourself in the foot, right? Here's one that's pretty much very, very clear. Clearly judged by modern standards. Okay, it's very, See, so you start talking about dealing with weaknesses and sort of style and passivity of voice. Really good examples here. Staying on track, balance in general, being very general, being very specific. These are important things to keep in mind when you write. I invite you to look at this site. I think it's pretty good. If we were to do all of this, then, this would take weeks to go through. And even this notion of evidence, how you do research, has a lot to do with the particular, the writer's manual that you have in terms of APA, which is American Psychological Association. What's MLA stand for?
Modern language.
Yeah, modern language something or other, right? I never used MLA, so I don't know. My background, we used APA style of writing, okay? So understand that even how you write to a particular audience, again, based on what they accept and what they don't, the mechanics of doing that, and then at the end. This might even be like how to write a dissertation. What kind of paper to use, the binding, the spacing, printing and fonts, all this stuff. It's pretty hardcore. So I invite you, if you want to go ahead and look at this a little bit more, this is a great website. Nuts and bolts of college writing. Fantastic. Okay. Do any of you have any questions right now? No? The Juan sisters are all right back there? Las hermanas Juanas? All right. So, with that, let me do this. I'm going to pass you out an evaluation. So please take time to go ahead and fill this out. Next week, how many of you are at COD? Next week, Angel is going to be doing a workshop on applying to the Cal State University system. As you know, the Cal States have begun the process of accepting applications for transfer or just regular admission. It started October 1st. It will end November 30th. She's going to do a workshop here next week on what's important to know when you apply for the Cal State University system. All right? She's also going to send out to a number of folks, and so some of you who are at COD might not have a destination of the Cal States in mind. You might be looking at going to the UC. We're going to try to see if there are any individuals that want to get information on how to apply for the University of California. If there's enough interest, then Angel can go ahead and do a workshop on applying for the University of California system. The big difference being that the UC system requires an essay. All right, we just talked about core writing. So if we do a UC application workshop, we're going to have you think about your core writing skills and how to put together a compelling argument on paper so that they will admit you to the UC system, all right? But the Cal State's a little more plug and chug, and she just wants to give you an opportunity to get familiar with the process.
I just have a particular question for the orange and gray forms for the people that are following the quarter system.
Yes.
Is there what's the deadline? There must be a deadline.
The deadline for folks on the quarter system with the orange and gray form, your deadline is October 20. You still have time. And I can't tell you, unless you're a junior, and I don't want to say I feel bad for juniors, but if you're a junior or a sophomore, you're either looking at, wow, I'm about ready to start thinking about if I've transferred. If you're a sophomore, you might be in the process of transferring.